Hello everybody, this is Niclas Huschenbeth and this is a game analysis of a game I played in the Srefidensi Chess Open in Paramaribo, Suriname, which is in South America. This is the game analysis of game 5, round 5. I played against woman grandmaster Oleiny Linares Napoles from Cuba, and it was quite an interesting game, so I decided to share with you. She started with f4, and that was a surprise to me, and in fact this might very well be the very first time in my life that I faced this move in a classical game. And without thinking too much, I played this move, knight h6, which about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, I believe, I came across, and it looks like such a funny move, but it's not a bad move. And there is an idea to it. And in fact, we're going to see the idea. She played b3, which is already an accuracy. In fact, after b3, after only 2 moves, black's already more comfortable. Can you believe it? White should go knight f3, simply. After b3, now we see the whole idea. Black is playing e5, and this is an improved version of this gambit. You could also go e5 right away and play this. White doesn't play f5, of course, and play this gambit, but here it's not that good for black, and white is better. But with this insertion of moves, knight h6 and e5, now it is very playable for black, and already better for black, in fact. So let's see, f takes e5, d6, and my opponent now played bishop a3. Yeah, if e takes d6 and bishop takes d6, and the whole idea is now, well, there's a checkmate threat, and if knight f3, then black can go knight g4, threaten knight takes h2, and if g3, then you have several options. h5 looks good, or just queen f6 followed by castle. Black has a huge lead in development. White's king is a little bit unsafe. This is very nice compensation for black. So I think a good decision by my opponent not to take, but here in this position she's also just worse. I have a better development after center, and white also is having some problems on the dark squares. Knight c3, and now I play bishop g4, which makes it much more difficult for white to naturally develop. Now she played knight f3. Obviously, well, you cannot go e3, which you would like to. And if you go g3 here, I actually want to go f5, bishop g2 and e4, and just block this bishop and have nice space advantage, play on the dark squares. This is also looking great for black. So she went knight f3, and here I spent quite some time, I would say at least 20 minutes, which is a lot. Pondering between f5, which I actually played, and the move knight c6, which is standard, but here after e4, knight d4, I couldn't find anything too convincing. I mean, this is definitely better for black, but it wasn't enough. Here black can go queen d6. I calculated queen h4 check, g3, queen h3, stopping white from castling, and this looks good at first sight, but white can go knight d5 and c3, kick the knight out. And I just didn't see anything convincing here. Knight e6, queen e2, white will castle, and the worst is over. So I played f5, which is quite interesting. With the idea of going e4, obviously. She played d4. I didn't see this move at all. I was expecting knight takes e5, so I'm sacrificing a pawn here, and I want to go f4. Now, of course, threatening queen h4 quite strongly. So knight f3 back. With the idea if black now takes, then queen h4, and white has this intermediate check here and can castle next move and no problems. So I just want to play knight c6. I was looking at this position, e3, and here I want to go knight e5. F takes e3, there might be queen e2 possible, or just d takes e3. And yeah, it looks nice, but the black king is also still in the center, so you need to solve that problem, and not that clear. The knight e5 is also not that clear. Bishop e2 would be bad now, because black can take on f3 and go queen h4 check, and this is just horrible. But white can play queen e2. And now after bishop takes f3, g takes f3, queen h4 check, white is forced to go king d1, because after queen f2 I can take on f3, take on f2, and the king is very unsafe in the center here. I'm winning material right away. Knight d4 check, knight f2, and picking up the exchange. So white will need to go king d1, and then I castle, and I think I have good compensation for the pawn here, but this is not over by any means. The king can go to b2, and still a whole fight ahead. But what my opponent did is also quite reasonable, actually. d4 here. Now I played e4. Bishop takes f3, I didn't spend too much time on, because here after queen e2 check, yeah, that just doesn't feel right. Queen e7, there's knight b5, and white will regain the pawn. That was not what I had planned. So at e4, knight e5, and now knight d7. Knight takes d7, queen takes d7, and we're both castling queenside here. And white has finished his development, well, more or less, but still some problems to solve. Obviously I have more space, and the bishop still needs to find his task in this position. And here I play queen e7. There's actually f4, which I consider but wasn't sure about. Obviously the critical move must be that white takes this pawn. And here only looked at knight f5, which is good, but also possible is actually move queen e7, so it's quite strong. And knight f2, and just move the bishop, and white is having such troubles here to develop his king side. And of course I have ideas of playing knight f5, knight e3, and this is great. I had spent some time on knight f5, and I would like to show this real quick. Queen takes f4, knight takes d4 looks great at first sight, because I have the threat knight takes b3 if the queen moves anywhere, picking up the rook. And if the queen goes to d2, I can go queen e7, for example. I have ideas over here, knight takes b3. This is winning. But then I spotted this move, knight d6, which is quite a nice tactical trick. If c takes d6, then white takes on d4 of the queen. And I looked at this variation, and I was like, this must be good for me, right? I can play queen a3 check. There must be some tactic here, but I just couldn't find anything. But the computer showed me just to calm retreat knight c6, and the point is to have this very strong threat knight b4. So white has to go c3, knight e5, queen e2, and now it is a whole different situation. Now white is not able to get his bishop out, and black is still clearly better here. But you had to see it up to this point if you want to go for this. So this would have been a little bit stronger than what I did. Because after queen e7, well, white is getting out here. Played g3. Excuse me. And now went bishop h5. Also here f4 is possible, and would have been arguably stronger. G takes, e3, queen d3, and rook takes f4. I didn't want to give the bishop this long diagonal, but, well, the computer just says I play c6, and nothing's happening over here. So, yeah, that would have been also quite good for me. Well, I went bishop h5 rather quickly to have the idea of going knight g4, which my opponent prevented by going h3, but I think bishop h3 would have been a better way to do it, just to develop this bishop. If knight g4, you can just take it off. And here I still have the advantage, I'm still better, but it's not that much anymore. I have lost some of my edge. After h3 I was quite happy though. Now I played f4 finally. And my opponent surprised me, she played g4. If g takes f4, I want to go knight f5, threaten this pawn, and e3 obviously lose the exchange, so white has to go d5. Now e3, queen d3, and here I want to go bishop g6, but that's not too clear. Better is queen h4, just going after this pawn, and here black has great compensation. Even if white defends this pawn on f4 of queen c4, let's say, well, I can pick it up sooner or later anyway. And this pawn is strong, and still the white pieces here on the king side are not in the game yet. So she went g4. Now bishop g6. And I threaten e3 here quite unpleasantly. So she went e3 herself. And now I had to consider f takes e3 and f3. And I went for f3 because it's just a long-term advantage with the protected passed pawn so advanced on f3. F takes e3 also looks attractive at first sight to get the rook in here and also have a strong passed pawn, but it's not protected and it's not as clear as what we see in the game. I think in the game I have a better position. f3, the rook h2, but still it's not, you still have to win this somehow. Even though the position looks great for black, still has to be won here. I played c5, which opens up my king a little bit, but forces d5, and I quite like that. Because obviously white cannot allow me taking on d4 and having another passed pawn here. So d5, now this opens up this beautiful square for the queen, where I'm looking to the queen side and the king side. Now she played king b1 to be able to move the knight without being checkmated on a1. And in the next moves, I should have just played king b8 at some point. I just put it off again and again, and I should have just played it. The king is so much better placed on b8 here, because then knight b5 and knight a4 can be just much better met. I played bishop f7, the point being that a white now cannot move the knight, since then the pawn is hanging on d5. But it would have been better to just go king b8 right away. And yes, white can move the knight, and this is what I was not afraid of, but I didn't want to allow that white can secure the pawn of c4. But here, I can go b6. And actually, yeah, this maybe not the most accurate move order. I don't need to force c4, it's coming anyway. So I can rather play something like this, and then put my knight on d6, and I will slowly make progress here on the queen side, open this up, king side, excuse me, open this up, and it will take a while maybe, but black should somehow win this. I'm pretty sure. I mean, this is just a monster on f3. So I played bishop f7, and she went rook f2. And now I went knight g8 once again. I need to go king b8 here. Because otherwise, we'll see in a moment, there are some chances of white connect to d6, and here after d6 now I could just go bishop e8, stop d7, stop knight b5 ideas, and that's just much better. Yeah, I played knight g8. I finally want to improve the position of my knight, bring it to f6, which is the perfect square for the knight. But here really d6 was quite possible, and the position is not that clear anymore. I mean, one line, for example, here is if I go knight f6 now, which I was kind of intending, I guess, then knight b5, a6, and queen a5, and we see here, well, the king is not well placed on c8 now. Just a checkmate threat, and after king b8, white can force a draw right away. Check, queen b6. I have to take the knight, and there's the perpetual. So to keep any kind of advantage, I would probably need to go king b8 now, but now knight b5 again, this idea, queen a5, and if I go b6, white has different moves, even a move like b4, and this is really still a very much complicated position because my king is rather open, and this pawn d6, I'm not getting rid of this pawn anytime soon. So yeah, that was a missed opportunity and careless play by me. Missed opportunity for my opponent, of course. Bishop c4, knight f6, rook ff1, and this is just careless. This is just playing too quickly. Here I'm in complete control. White doesn't really have many plans or ideas, except for connected to knight a4, knight b5. So just play king b8 here, and I'm just completely safe. The king, like I said before many times, so much better place here on b8 than on c8. So just play this move and then continue. Maybe h6. I can play another slow move and then double on the d file, and I will win this pawn sooner or later because white doesn't have any play here. So rook d7, very careless. My point was I just want to double, obviously, and bishop b5. I can just take on d5. In fact, this is just winning. But g5 is a very good try. And I could have also, instead of king b8, also stopped g5 by playing h6. Very simple. So, just careless. g5, queen takes. And here she played rook g1. Better try would be to go knight a4 actually right now. Having the queen distracted a little bit and now going knight a4. And I probably need to give up this pawn. Playing queen e5. If I go b6, then suddenly we see again ideas against the king. Queen h2 suddenly. Unbelievable. And if king a8, there's bishop b5, and suddenly I'm already worse. And rook c7 is also, of course, not a move you would like to play. So, shouldn't do that. So here I should go queen e5. Knight takes c5, rook c7, knight e6, bishop takes, d takes e6, and black is better, but there's still, once again, some work to be done here, and definitely much better try than what happened in the game. So rook g1, and now I went queen e5, and I'm glad I did, because queen h6, it just didn't feel right to me. I didn't see a concrete refutation, but it felt just wrong, and probably knight a4 is quite strong here once again. And the same idea holds true, bishop a6 check and queen h2 and bishop b5. So this is no good. The queen is just so well placed on e5. So I put it back there. Now rook takes g7, that was my opponent's idea. Now I play rook fd8. And here my opponent played bishop b5. But position is lost anyway. Maybe rook dg1 would have been a better try, because here I need to calculate a lot. And it's not that clear. Rook g5 is an idea, so I could go h6, and that might be maybe the most sensible move, but it is actually also possible to just take this off. Knight takes, but you really have to be sure here that you're not missing anything. Bishop takes, and now rook 1 g5. If rook takes d7, rook takes d7, knight takes d7, knight takes d5, here probably take with the queen to have the g8 square covered, and black will consolidate, and of course with this pawn on f3 all the endgames are always winning. So rook 1 g5, and in the analysis, in the postmortem, we set f2. This is good for black, but even better is queen takes g7 actually. Rook takes, knight takes d5, and now just play very cool move b6. And white can't really deal with this pawn. You can also not stabilize the knight because of rook g1, rook g2, and this is winning for black. So let's see what happened in the game. Bishop b5. Well, if I had to move my rook now here, then I'd be in trouble, but this works. Rook takes d5, and I had seen this, and now it's just all over for white, because if white takes, then knight takes d5 and knight c3 is just unstoppable. The rook is also hanging, by the way, and rook takes f7, knight c3, queen takes, rook takes d1, king b2, rook b1, takes, and with this position, and black is easily winning. So she tried bishop d3, but here I have numerous ways to win. I can take, but I just said, okay, you know what, I'll just move back, protect my bishop. This bishop is in a pin. Game over. She played knight b5, I took, knight takes a7 check, king b8, queen a5, going for some last tricks attached to knight c6. But I just played queen c7 here. Actually, even d takes c2, king takes c2, and now queen h2. I hadn't seen this move. That would lead to checkmate very quickly, in fact. But it doesn't really matter, because after queen c7, my opponent resigned, because there's no more play. She's a piece down. So that's it. Yeah, I thought it was quite an interesting game. Original position quite early in the game after f4, knight h6, and this interesting pawn sacrifice. And then I got a very nice position, but when I tried to convert, I was a little bit careless. Should have played a little bit more cautiously, playing king b8 earlier to not allow for any white counterplay, but in the end it all worked out for me. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed the analysis, and I see you again very soon. Take care. Bye bye.